Welcome to the Vue ListView component tutorial. With Syncfusion Vue ListView, you can easily display selectable items with various customization options. In this video, I will show you how to create a Vue application and add the Vue ListView component. I will also cover how to connect data from different sources, include checkboxes in a list, add nested list items, and more. Before proceeding, make sure you have installed the latest versions of Vue and Node.js. I'll use Visual Studio Code as my editor and show the output in the Edge browser. To create a project in Vue, open Visual Studio Code and type the command npm create vite at latest. I set my app name as my Vue app. Next, choose Vue as the framework and JavaScript as the variant. A Vue project is created. I navigate to the newly created Vue app and install the required dependencies using the command npm install. Now, the application is configured with the default settings of a Vite project. To use the Syncfusion Vue ListView component, type the command npm install at syncfusion/ej2vuelists -- save to install the lists package. Next, I must register the trial license key to use Syncfusion components. I open the main.js file and import the register license method from the Syncfusion ej2 base package. Using this method, I can register the trial license key. For instructions on generating a trial key, refer to the link in this video's description. I navigate to the app Vue file, remove the default code, and add three major code blocks: script, template, and style. Inside the script tag, import the ListView component from the Syncfusion Vue Lists package. Following that, within the template block, let me add a division element tag and add the Vue ListView component inside the element. Next, to add a CSS reference for the component, I import the material theme within the style tag. Next, I am going to bind data to ListView. You can assign various data sources, including string arrays, simple JSON arrays, complex JSON, or remote API data. To keep it simple, I will add a basic JSON array. So let me add the data source property and assign a variable. Then define the array and add items with two fields, namely ID and name, containing data about hobbies. Since this is a JSON array, mapping the data source fields to the ListView component is necessary. I add the fields property and assign an object, and map the ID field to the ID property, and the name field to the text property. To add a title, set the show header property to true, and the header title property to activities. Next, add the style property and set the height, width, and margin to align the division element. I save and run the application using the command npm run dev. The ListView component is now rendered with a defined data list. Notice that you can select only one item. Suppose you want to select multiple items, enable checkboxes for this component. Add the show checkbox property and set it to true. Looking here, the ListView component is rendered with checkboxes, and I can select multiple items. By default, the checkbox position is left, but you can change it using the checkbox position property. To demonstrate, I set the checkbox position property to right. Now checkboxes appear on the right. Next, I will show how to group list items. First, let me modify the JSON data to include a new field called category with appropriate values. To group the list, assign this field to the group by property within the fields object. Now the list is categorized by the category values adventure, water activities, and leisure. Next, I will show you how to render a nested list. I start by defining a new array called nested list data to store complex JSON data. Here, I will use the data in the Syncfusion Vue ListView documentation page. Following that, let me assign this nested list data to the data source. In the fields property, change the text property value, remove the group by property, and add the subchild property with a value to handle nesting. Finally, update the header title property to folders, since I have bound the items related to folder lists. See, the nested list is shown in the component. If I click the list, I can navigate through the child list. Next, let's see how to bind remote data. If I want to bind a remote data source to the component, I need to use the data manager. The data manager is a gateway between the list view and the data source. It also uses queries to interact with both local and remote data sources. As a first step, I import the data manager query and the required adapter from the J2 data package. Then, define a data manager instance named remote data. Within it, add the URL property and use the available remote URL service, which retrieves the list of data through post action and then binds the data to the list view. Let me show the API data received from the URL. Look here, it contains a list of employees with their names, designations, and their countries. I will use this JSON to feed data into the list view. I set Web API adapter here as the URL is assigned to the existing Web API service. Also add the cross-domain option and set it to true, allowing the cross-origin domain request. Next, I write the query to fetch the first 10 items from the remote data using the query interface. In the ListView component, I assign the remote data to the data source property and the data query variable to the query property. Additionally, I map the data source fields to the appropriate properties and change the header title to employee list. I also removed the show checkbox and checkbox position properties from the component. Now you can see the employee data displayed in the ListView component. That is how easy it is to embed a Syncfusion Vue ListView component onto a Vue application. You saw how to bind simple and complex JSON objects and remote data into a ListView component. You also saw how to add checkbox, modify the list header, and add nested lists. You can download the example in this video from the GitHub link shared in the description below. Check the link in the description to see if you are eligible for our free community license, with which you can access all our Vue components. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.